First contact under fire. The void between stars shimmered as the Harbinger Collective's dreadnoughts tore through the defensive line. Plasma fire illuminated the darkness, marking the deaths of another dozen Alliance vessels. High Marshal Vexer of the Terulian Defense Force watched from the bridge of his command ship as his carefully positioned fleet disintegrated under the relentless assault. Orbital platforms 3 through 7 have fallen, reported his second-in-command, her crystalline features reflecting the emergency lighting. Civilian evacuation is at 30% capacity. We cannot hold them much longer. Vexer's segmented appendages tightened around the command rail. The Harbinger Collective had appeared 18 standard cycles ago, emerging from the galactic rim with technology that seemed to defy known physics. Since then, they had systematically consumed 23 worlds, leaving nothing but barren husks in their wake. "Send the emergency beacon," Vexer ordered. "Full spectrum, all Alliance frequencies." His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, the nearest Alliance response fleet is at least 3 days away." "Send it anyway," Vexer snapped. "Proxima Station holds the research data from all our encounters with the Collective. If it falls, we lose any hope of finding their weakness." The command ship shuddered as another barrage struck their weakening shields. Damage reports flooded in from all decks. Through the main viewport, Vexer watched as the massive orbital research station, home to over 50,000 civilians and scientists, trembled under directed energy fire from the approaching Harbinger vessels. "Emergency beacon transmitted, sir," the communications officer announced. Then, puzzled, "I'm detecting a response. But it's not from any Alliance vessel. Collective countermeasures." "No, sir, it's—" The officer paused, antenna twitching in confusion. "Sir, it's using frequencies we've never encountered, but it's definitely responding to our distress call. The signature is unlike anything in our database." Before Vexer could respond, space itself seemed to fold inward approximately 10,000 kilometers from their position. The distortion held for 3 seconds before releasing a vessel unlike any he had seen before. "What in the 7 moons is that?" breathed his tactical officer. The ship was angular, utilitarian in design, with no concessions to aesthetics. Unlike the organically curved Alliance vessels or the crystalline structures of the Harbinger ships, this newcomer was a study in brutal functionality. Its hull was dark, absorbing rather than reflecting ambient light, making it difficult to gauge its true size. Weapon systems protruded from its surface in organized patterns, suggesting a design philosophy focused on maximizing offensive capability. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said the communications officer. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a bipedal being with minimal external protection. Its skin was a rich brown, its head crowned with tightly coiled black hair. The bridge around the being was a symphony of organized chaos. Officers moving with purpose, displays flickering with data streams. "This is Admiral Zephyr Keynes of the United Earth ship Defiant." The being spoke, its translator converting the sounds into Alliance standard. "We received your distress call and are prepared to render assistance. Please transmit tactical data and hold position." Vexer stared at the screen. The species was unknown to him, bipedal, clearly oxygen-breathing, but with none of the defensive adaptations common to evolved sentience. No exoskeleton, no natural armor, just soft tissue protected by what appeared to be artificial coverings. "This is High Marshal Vexer of the Terulian Defense Force," he replied. "Your assistance is unexpected. We are defending Proxima Research Station against Harbinger Collective forces. But I must warn you, a single vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot turn this tide." The human's facial features arranged themselves into what Vexer's cultural database later identified as a smile, a gesture of confidence rather than aggression. "With respect, Marshal," Admiral Keynes replied. "Let us be the judge of that." Defiant out. The transmission ended, leaving Vexer to watch as the Earth vessel accelerated toward the Harbinger fleet. Its movement patterns defied conventional navigation algorithms, utilizing a form of propulsion that seemed to bend traditional physics. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the unknown vessel is. It's engaging the Harbinger dreadnoughts." On the tactical display, Vexor watched as the Earth ship executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel of its mass. It closed distance with the lead Harbinger dreadnought, a vessel 5 times its size, and then, instead of firing energy weapons, launched what appeared to be solid projectiles. The effect was immediate and devastating. Where Alliance energy weapons would disperse against Harbinger shields, these physical projectiles passed through as if the defenses weren't there. 3 impacts, precisely placed, and the dreadnought's command section disintegrated in a blinding flash. "Impossible," whispered Vexor. "They're shields." "Sir," the tactical officer interrupted, voice tight with disbelief. The projectiles were traveling at approximately 11% of light speed. The kinetic energy alone would. The Earth vessel was moving again, executing another series of spatial jumps that placed it within optimal range of 2 more Harbinger ships. This time, instead of projectiles, it released what appeared to be small autonomous drones that attached themselves to the Harbinger hulls. Moments later, the enemy vessel's systems went dark, drifting powerless in space. "They're disabled, not destroyed," noted the second in command. "How did they penetrate the Harbinger defenses?" Vexor had no answer. In 7 years of conflict, the Alliance had never managed to neutralize a Harbinger vessel without completely destroying it. The information contained in those ships could be invaluable. The battle continued for 26 minutes. When it ended, the Harbinger fleet, 15 capital ships and their escorts, had been either destroyed or disabled. The Earth vessel remained, showing minimal damage despite having engaged an enemy that had terrorized the Alliance for nearly 2 decades. "Marshal," the communications officer called, "we're being hailed again." Admiral Keynes appeared on screen, her expression composed despite what Vexor now recognized as minor injuries on her face. "Marshal Vexor, the immediate threat has been neutralized. We've dispatched engineering teams to secure the disabled Harbinger vessels and recovery teams to assist with your damaged ships. I request permission to dock with Proxima Station for tactical discussion and to render medical assistance to your wounded." Vexor's mandibles clicked in the Tyrolean expression of astonishment. "Permission granted, Admiral. And thank you." 6 hours later, Vexor stood in Proxima Station's main conference chamber alongside representatives from 7 Alliance species. They had gathered to meet with the human delegation and discuss what had just transpired. The chamber buzzed with overlapping conversations, theories about the mysterious humans and their impossible technology. Admiral Keynes entered with 2 officers, a tall, pale-skinned male introduced as Commander Chen, Tactical Operations, and a copper-skinned female named Dr. Lakshmi Patel, Chief Science Officer. The human delegation wore simple dark uniforms adorned only with small insignia indicating rank. "Admiral," began Counselor Thetix of the Solarian Republic, his gelatinous form pulsing with agitation. "While we appreciate your timely intervention, your presence raises concerning questions. Our astronomical surveys detected no evidence of advanced technology in your system. Yet you arrive with capabilities that outmatch our finest vessels." "We've been watching," Keynes replied simply. "Earth achieved faster-than-light capability 14 years ago. Rather than announce ourselves, we deployed observation probes throughout this sector." "Impossible," objected Ambassador Quillian of the Arcadian Harmony. "Our detection systems would have identified such devices." Commander Chen exchanged a glance with Keynes before responding. "With respect, Ambassador, if your detection systems were capable of identifying our stealth technology, you might have detected the Harbinger fleet before they destroyed half your defense force." The rebuke hung in the air until Vexor intervened. "The commander makes a valid point. The humans clearly possess technology operating on principles unfamiliar to us. More importantly, they have demonstrated both the ability and willingness to oppose the Harbinger Collective effectively." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "Our analysis of the disabled Harbinger vessels confirms what we suspected. Their shield technology is specifically calibrated to disperse energy weapons, the kind all your civilizations developed. They never encountered kinetic weapons of sufficient velocity to pose a threat. You built your defenses against light, Keynes added, because light was your weapon. We took a different path. Why? Asked Vexer. Why develop such weapons if you had no enemies in space? Admiral Keynes's expression grew somber. Because humanity spent its history fighting itself. When we unified and looked to the stars, we didn't abandon those lessons, we applied them. We prepared for threats we hadn't yet encountered, because our history taught us they would exist. Before any could respond, a junior officer burst into the chamber. "Forgive the interruption," she said, "but we've detected a massive Harbinger fleet on long-range sensors. They're heading for the Elysium system." "Elysium Prime has a population of 14 billion, gasped Ambassador Quillian. "Our largest colony world. And the nearest Alliance battle group is 4 days away," added Counselor Thetix. All eyes turned to Admiral Keynes, whose expression had hardened into resolute determination. "The UES Defiant can be there in 17 hours, she said simply. "One ship against a Harbinger assault fleet?" Vexer asked, mandibles clicking in concern. "Even with your technology, the odds." "Defiant isn't just one ship, Marshal," Keynes interrupted. "It's humanity's first step into the stars, and we didn't come unprepared." As the Alliance representatives debated the implications, Keynes stepped aside with her officers. Their private conversation was brief but intense, ending with solemn nods of agreement. "Representatives of the Alliance," Keynes announced, returning to the center of the chamber. "Earth formally requests provisional membership in your coalition. In return, we offer immediate military assistance against the Harbinger threat and technology sharing once the immediate crisis has passed." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until Vexer raised his appendages for silence. "The Harbinger Collective has pushed us to the brink of extinction," he said. "Conventional wisdom would say one ship, even one as advanced as yours, cannot change that equation. But conventional wisdom hasn't served us well in this war." He turned to face the human delegation fully, his posture shifting to the formal stance of Tyrolean ceremonial agreement. "Admiral Keynes, I cannot speak for the entire Alliance, but the Tyrolean Defense Force stands with Earth. Lead the way to Elysium Prime, and we will follow." As the other representatives began to voice their positions, the tactical officer returned with updated intelligence. The Harbinger fleet approaching Elysium Prime was 3 times larger than any previously encountered, including vessels of a class never before seen. The Harbinger Collective had committed their reserves to this assault. It would either be their greatest victory or their first defeat. The turning point. The bridge of the UES Defiant hummed with controlled activity as Admiral Zephyr Keynes reviewed the tactical projections for the Elysium system. Beside her stood High Marshal Vexer, whose decision to accompany the human vessel had raised mandibles across the Alliance leadership. 37 capital ships, Vexer observed, studying the long-range sensor data, including 3 of their world breakers. "The Collective is committing everything to this assault." Keynes nodded grimly. "They're adapting to our intervention. Harbinger command structure is more flexible than your intelligence suggested." "They've never needed to adapt before," Vexer replied. "Until your arrival, their technological superiority was absolute." The Admiral's dark eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, where the Harbinger fleet formed a spherical formation around what appeared to be a massive central vessel, nearly 5 kilometers in length. "Dr. Patel," she called to her science officer, "analysis of the central vessel." The chief science officer manipulated her console controls, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Energy readings are off the charts. Admiral, if I'm interpreting their systems correctly, it appears to be a carrier of some kind, but the power generation exceeds anything we've encountered by several orders of magnitude." "A command ship," Commander Chen suggested, "or a factory vessel." Keynes tapped her communication badge. "Engineering. Status report." "All systems optimal, Admiral," came the response. Phase cannons charge, Schwarz shell generators at full capacity, reappears missiles armed and ready, and Project Longbow. A pause. Calibrated and standing by, Admiral. But I must emphasize, we've never field-tested the system against targets of this magnitude. Noted, Keynes replied. Maintain readiness. Vexer's compound eyes studied the human admiral's face. You have a plan, he stated rather than asked. Always, Keynes confirmed. But first, I need to understand why Elysium Prime is so important to the collective. This level of commitment suggests they're after something specific. The Tyrolean Marshal's appendages twitched in what Keynes had come to recognize as thoughtful contemplation. Elysium Prime houses our largest quantum computation facility. The Alliance's strategic predictive models, defense algorithms, and star charts are all processed there. Keynes nodded. That explains it. They're not just after another world. They're targeting your intelligence infrastructure. She turned to her communications officer. Lieutenant, open a secure channel to Alliance Command. Priority Alpha. Within moments, the main view screen displayed the Alliance Security Council, 7 representatives from the Coalition's founding species. Their expressions, for those with recognizable facial features, registered surprise at seeing a human and Tyrolean standing side by side on the bridge of an Earth vessel. Admiral Keynes, acknowledged the Council chairperson, a luminescent photonian whose tendrils pulsed with cautious energy. The Council has reviewed Marshal Vexer's report of your intervention at Proxima Station. Your assistance was unexpected but appreciated. Thank you, Chairperson, Keynes replied. But we face a more pressing situation. The Harbinger fleet approaching Elysium Prime is their largest deployment to date, and we believe they're specifically targeting the quantum computation facility. Murmurs rippled through the Council chamber. The Arcadian representative's crystalline structure darkened with concern. If they access those systems, they gain complete insight into Alliance defense strategies, resource distribution, and communication networks, Keynes finished, which is why the UES Defiant is en route to intercept. A single vessel against their armada, questioned the Solarian counselor. Even with your remarkable technology, Admiral, the odds appear insurmountable. Keynes allowed herself a small smile. Humanity has a long history of overcoming insurmountable odds, counselor. But I'm not proposing to face them alone. She glanced at Vexer, who nodded his agreement. I request that the Alliance redirect any available vessels to Elysium Prime. Not to engage directly, but to handle evacuation and secondary defense. The Council members exchanged glances before the chairperson spoke again. We can dispatch 14 vessels within 6 hours. But Admiral, what exactly do you intend to do against such overwhelming force? Change the rules of engagement, Keynes answered cryptically. Council members, there's something you should understand about humanity. Throughout our history, we've excelled at one thing above all others: adapting our strategies when conventional approaches fail. The view screen split to display historical footage from Earth's past, images of ancient armies adapting tactics to overcome superior forces, engineers developing technologies that transformed warfare, scientists breaking theoretical barriers that had once seemed immutable. We spent millennia fighting ourselves, Keynes continued, developing weapons, strategies, and technologies designed to overcome seemingly impossible odds. When we unified and looked to the stars, we didn't abandon that mindset. We refined it. Dr. Paddle stepped forward. Our analysis of Harbinger technology reveals a fundamental weakness. Their entire tactical doctrine is built around energy-based weapons and defenses. They've never encountered a species that took our approach to space combat. Which is, prompted the chairperson. Multidimensional warfare, Commander Chen explained. The Defiant carries conventional weaponry, yes, but also systems designed to attack from vectors the Harbinger Collective has never defended against. Keynes concluded, give us your support, and I believe we can do more than just defend Elysium Prime. We can deliver the Collective their first significant defeat. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives considered the human proposal. Finally, the chairperson's tendrils brightened in affirmation. Very well, Admiral. Alliance vessels will converge on Elysium Prime to support evacuation efforts. The defense of the system, however, falls to you. May fortune favor your strategy. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew to contemplate the enormity of their task. Vexer turned to Keynes, his mandibles clicking softly. Your council seems to place great faith in your capabilities, Admiral. Not faith, Keynes corrected. Pragmatism. Earth is still new to interstellar affairs, but we've been watching the Harbinger advance for years. We built the Defiant specifically to counter their technology. One vessel, Vexer mused. Your species commits everything to a single point of failure. Commander Chen laughed softly. Hardly, Marshal. Defiant is the first, not the only. Earth's shipyards are producing more vessels as we speak, but someone had to make first contact. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Elysium system 17 hours later. Long-range sensors immediately detected the Harbinger fleet in high orbit around Elysium Prime, the planet's defensive platforms already engaged and failing. Harbinger vessels have begun atmospheric insertion, reported the tactical officer. Ground forces will make planetfall within 20 minutes. Alliance evacuation ships are reporting 30% capacity, added the communications officer. They're requesting more time. Keynes stood from her command chair, surveying the tactical display with calm determination. They'll have it. Deploy reappears missiles, dispersal pattern theta. Target their atmospheric insertion vessels first. Reappears missiles armed and targeting, confirmed Commander Chen. Dispersal pattern theta locked. Fire. The Defiant shuddered slightly as 24 missiles launched from concealed bays along its hull. Unlike conventional weapons, these missiles didn't proceed directly toward their targets. Instead, they executed a complex series of spatial jumps, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield in patterns that defy prediction. On the tactical display, Keynes watched as the first wave of missiles struck their targets with devastating precision. The Harbinger atmospheric insertion vessels, designed for planetary assault rather than space combat, offered minimal resistance. Within moments, 12 were reduced to expanding debris fields. They're responding, Chen reported. Harbinger capital ships breaking formation, moving to intercept. As expected, Keynes nodded. Phase 2. Activate Schwarzschild generators and execute combat pattern Epsilon. Vexer watched in fascination as the Defiant's revolutionary propulsion system engaged. Based on principles that manipulated localized gravity wells, the Schwarzschild generators allowed the vessel to execute maneuvers that would tear conventional ships apart. To the Harbinger fleet, it would appear as if the human vessel was teleporting unpredictably across the battlefield, making targeting nearly impossible. Targeting solutions locked for the destroyer-class vessels, Chen announced. Phase cannons charged. Fire at will, Commander. The Defiant's main energy weapons discharged in coordinated sequence. Unlike the Alliance's diffuse energy beams, these weapons fired concentrated pulses of exotic particles that momentarily disrupted the fabric of space-time itself. Where they struck, Harbinger shields collapsed inward, creating localized singularities that tore the vessels apart from within. 4 destroyers neutralize, reported Chen. But their command ship is adapting. They are recalibrating their shields. Keynes nodded grimly. Faster than we anticipated. Dr. Patel, status of Project Longbow. Charged and ready. Admiral, the science officer confirmed. But we'll need to get closer to their command vessel. The focal range is limited to 50,000 kilometers. Commander Chen, plot an intercept course. All power to forward shields. The bridge crew executed their orders with practiced precision as the Defiant accelerated toward the massive Harbinger command ship. Enemy vessels turned to intercept, their weapons fire intensifying as they recognized the threat. Admiral. Vexer interjected, mandibles clicking in alarm. Their command vessel is positioning to fire its main cannon. Alliance intelligence suggests it's capable of planetary sterilization. They're desperate, Keynes observed. Good. That means they recognize the threat we pose. She tapped her communication badge. Engineering, initiate Project Longbow. Target their command vessel's power core. Initiating now, Admiral, came the response. Gravitational lensing focused. Quantum tunneling established. The Defiance systems redirected power from all non-essential functions as a previously concealed apparatus extended from its forward section. Unlike any weapon Vexor had witnessed, this device didn't fire energy or physical projectiles. Instead, it created a focused distortion in the fabric of reality itself, a direct tunnel through space-time that bypassed conventional defenses entirely. On the tactical display, a thin line of distorted space connected the Defiant to the Harbinger command ship. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without warning or external indication, the massive enemy vessel's power core imploded, creating a chain reaction that tore through its internal systems. Direct hit, confirmed Dr. Patel, her voice tight with scientific excitement. The quantum tunnel bypassed all their defensive systems and disrupted their power matrix at the subatomic level. The command ship didn't explode dramatically. Instead, its lights flickered and died, systems failing in cascading sequence as its massive bulk began drifting in orbit. Their command structure is disrupted, Chen reported. The remaining vessels are losing coordination. Keynes turned to Vexor, whose compound eyes were fixed on the tactical display in stunned disbelief. Marshal, now would be an excellent time for your Alliance vessels to engage the remaining Harbinger ships. With their command structure compromised, they'll be fighting as individuals, not a coordinated force. The Tyrolean snapped from his reverie, issuing orders through his communication device. All Alliance vessels converge and engage. Target isolated Harbinger ships and coordinate fire. The command vessel has been neutralized. Over the next 40 minutes, the combined Earth and Alliance forces systematically eliminated or disabled the remaining Harbinger vessels. The Defiant's unconventional weapons proved decisive, creating openings that Alliance ships exploited with devastating effect. When the battle ended, 29 Harbinger capital ships had been destroyed, with 8 more disabled and adrift. Alliance casualties were minimal. 3 vessels lost, several more damaged but repairable. The evacuation of critical personnel and data from Elysium Prime had been completed successfully. On the bridge of the Defiant, Admiral Keynes finally allowed herself to relax slightly, sinking into her command chair with the weight of exhaustion. Vexor approached, his posture conveying deep respect. In 7 cycles of war, the Tyrolean Marshal began. The Alliance never achieved a victory of this magnitude. Your single vessel accomplished what entire fleets could not. Keynes smiled wearily. Not alone, Marshal. Your Alliance ships performed admirably once the command structure was disrupted. But the strategy, the weapons, they were uniquely human, Vexor insisted. You approached this conflict from angles we never considered. That's the human advantage, Keynes agreed. We think differently because our history forced us to. Where your civilizations developed through cooperation and gradual advancement, humanity evolved through conflict and adaptation. Dr. Patel joined them, her tablet displaying preliminary analysis of the disabled Harbinger vessels. We've already begun extracting data from their systems. The intelligence gathered today will be invaluable in developing countermeasures against future attacks. And there will be future attacks, Commander Chen warned. The collective will adapt to our methods, develop new defenses, and we'll adapt in turn, Keynes replied confidently. That's what humans do best. The main view screen activated, displaying the Alliance Security Council. The chairperson's tendrils pulsed with vibrant colors that indicated profound emotional response. Admiral Keynes, the Photonian began, the Alliance owes you and your crew a debt that cannot be easily quantified. The victory at Elysium Prime represents our first real hope since the Harbinger Collective appeared. Thank you, Chairperson, Keynes acknowledged. But this was only the beginning. The collective will return, stronger and better prepared, which is why the Council has unanimously approved Earth's provisional membership in the Alliance, the chairperson announced. Furthermore, we propose the establishment of a joint defense initiative, with humanity taking a leading role in developing strategic countermeasures against the Harbinger threat. Keynes exchanged glances with her officers before responding. Earth accepts both offers, chairperson. We'll dispatch diplomatic representatives immediately to formalize the arrangements. As the transmission ended, Vexer turned to Keynes. Your species entered galactic affairs with remarkable timing, Admiral. One might almost suspect you were waiting for the right moment. Keynes smiled enigmatically. Not waiting, Marshal. Preparing. Humanity has always understood that the universe is filled with both wonders and dangers. We simply chose to be ready for both. The Defiance engines hummed as the ship adjusted course, preparing to return to Proxima Station, where Alliance leaders would gather to formalize Earth's new role in galactic affairs. You asked earlier what humanity brings to this conflict that might turn the tide, Keynes said to Vexer as they watched Elysium Prime recede on the view screen. The answer is perspective. Where you see insurmountable odds, we see challenges to overcome. Where you develop technology for peaceful exploration, we developed it with the understanding that not all encounters would be peaceful. A warrior's mindset, Vexer observed. A survivor's mindset, Keynes corrected. And now, it seems, the galaxy needs survivors more than explorers. As the Defiant disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the promise of a new alliance between humanity and the galactic community, the stars themselves seemed to burn a little brighter. The war against the Harbinger Collective was far from over, but for the first time since their devastating emergence, there was something the Alliance had long forgotten: hope.